If you take the European society or the pre-modern European society, there is very good documentation here. Very good documentation. You will find that there was untouchability. Jati and Varna, the birth-based stratification is something that is unique to India. It didn't exist anywhere else in the world, it exists only in India. So Varna Jati is in Indian context, it is Varna Jati, universally it is birth-based social stratification. So this state, which was ruled by non-Aryan, Dravidian or the aborigines or both, it was taken over by the Aryans, the or it was destroyed by the Aryans, or they came in when it was in decline. There are different scenarios, but essentially this is the gist of it. They were either Indo-European speakers or they were Aryans. Either they were coming as migrants or they were actually coming in chariots. Whatever it was, they came and they imposed a particular kind of way of life, the Vedic way of life. They imposed it upon the society that was existing here. They also interacted with them and interbred with them. But this system was imposed, this system was the Varna system of the four hereditary classifications of the society. And the Indo-European speakers, they positioned themselves in the most powerful of the first two Varnas, the Brahmins and the Kshatriyas. And the aborigines, the Dravidians or whatever, they became either the Shudras or they went outside the system, they became the Avarnas. And this was the system that was going on. Then came Gautam Buddha who challenged this system, and he challenged the basis of this system, which is the authority of the Vedas. And this rebellious movement gained currency, it became very powerful and it became the part and parcel of the, you can say, the golden age of ancient Indian history. However, there also arose the Bhakti movement. The Bhakti movement also challenged the inner contradictions of the Vedic society, the inner differences, the social outcasts that were made by the Vedic society. And the chief priests of the Vedic religion, the Western interests who had a lot to gain if they sustained the Vedic way of life, they made sure that they used the Bhakti movement to defeat the Buddhist rebellion or the Buddhist flowering or whatever. And then those who were following Buddhism, they were made the Avarnas. So this is just the social standard model of Indian social history. And of course, later, when the Islamic invaders came, as Yaman Roy once put it gave a lot of freedom to the subjugated masses. And then the Britishers came with their Enlightenment value system. They brought the democratic educational institutions into India, and because they brought those democratized educational institutions into India, there was a social renaissance and there was a movement for social justice, and India was civilizationally rescued. And it was made to go into the realm of liberty, fraternity, and equality by the European Renaissance. So this is the standard model. And this standard model is taught in different ways, active voice and passive voice, in direct and indirect ways. It is being taught in the schools. It is being taught in the higher educational institutions. It is being made into beautiful movies. It is being made into beautiful novels, in literature, in entertainment, in your educational system. All around you, you can see this standard model alive and pulsating around you. There are people even today who are traditionalists who support the birth-based social stratification, which has a specific cultural name here. It is called Varna Jati. So Varna Jati is, in Indian context, it is Varna Jati. Universally, it is birth-based social stratification. So this birth-based social stratification has been there in all pre-modern societies. It was not something that was exceptional to India. But the traditionalists would love to think that only India had this particular kind of system. Interestingly, the radical person who wants to annihilate the caste system, the radical anti-traditionalist, he also wants to think that he also believes that caste system, Jati and Varna, the birth-based stratification, is something that is unique to India. It didn't exist anywhere else in the world, it exists only in India. That is what he also wants to say. So, the question is this really unique to India? Is there really an Indian exceptionalism here? The answer is a resounding no. The answer is that this birth-based stratification, social stratification, it exists in all pre-modern society. Then, in all the societies, in all human societies, there are always two forces that are operating. One is the force of social emancipation, and the one is the force of social stagnation. If you take the European society of the pre-modern European society, there is very good documentation here. Very good documentation. You will find that there was untouchability. Untouchability was there, social stratification was there, and it was birth based, and the people were considered as profane. The word profane itself comes from the fact that there were sections of people who would not be allowed inside sacred places, and those people used a kind of language, that language was the profane language. And even when people are of high pedigree, then they don't sweat, they shine. There were different words for this sweat, perspire, shine. It is the animals and the serf and the people who are doing the physical labor, they were the people who would sweat. The dukes and counts would always shine. So this, they even their vocabulary had this caste system in that. But all this disappeared once they were able to do colonization. Take for example, Australia. Australia is 9 times the size of India. So when you are colonizing such big masses and when such great resources are available to you, what happens is the misery of your own society gets redistributed across the continents. So once the slaves started coming in, the caste system that was in Europe, the caste system that was in the West, it became irrelevant. So that is how the caste system disappeared in many of the countries. What they did was they redistributed the human misery to all the continents, all over the world. And they became egalitarian. They could talk about egalitarian values. Whereas in the case of India, what was it? In India also, there has been social emancipation forces and social stagnation forces. But here, there were no socio-economic equations behind catalyzing social emancipation. So, social emancipation movements have always been rooted in a spirituality. So, there is no redistribution of misery. We would not remove untouchability by exporting the human misery to some other place. We would be laboring, we would be fighting all the problems that comes with social emancipation with a sense of owning it up, with a sense of it being a sacred duty. We would do that. So that has happened from the beginning till right now it has been happening. So what has happened ultimately is that we have created a model that we can assure that human emancipation, social welfare, a holistic human welfare is possible through a spiritual social awakening. And this book deals with those different phases in the history of India. Mohenjo-daro. They found Mohenjo-daro very similar to Soviet Union. They even named it Bronze Age Soviet Union. They told that this is totally a very congested, crushing of human creativity kind of civilization. There was no particular art, or there was these people were living in a kind of the state built squalors, and these people were all they all should have been slaves, etc., etc. Caste structure or proto caste structure should have belonged to those who were here before the Aryans came. That is what she says. Later, S.C. Malik, he had also put forth a very strong hypothesis with supported by facts, and he is now more than 90. He is in Delhi now. He was one of the very wonderful archaeologist plus anthropologist, and he very clearly states that there should have been a kind of a Varnalic structure or a caste structure in Harappa. Canoyer, Jonathan Canoyer. Canoyer had produced a lot of papers. In those papers, he had told that not only there was a caste-like structure, Not only there was a Catholic structure, but there was also a Jagmani system that was present in Harappan society, should have been present, he says. And Airavata Mahadevan, who was basically a deputy analogist. There were hereditary warrior officers. There were hereditary officers of, there were hereditary tillers, tenants, and there were also people who were servants. Simply said, you had the Varna system, a proto-Varna system there. And this particular word, Jagmani system, is very interesting because it was first used by a missionary uh, turned anthropologist, William Weiser. He wrote a book in 1936. He wrote a book called A Hindu Jagmani System. In that he said that how the Indian villages function. He studied Indian. He was a missionary come an anthropologist. So he produced this book, and this book is today almost what you can call a Bible for Indian social sciences. In every college, this particular book would be recommended even today. And he told that the Jagmani system was the redistributive system, which through which all the people who were doing different works, they could get coordinated and do the work. But it was favorable towards the Brahmins and it was oppressive towards the Dalits. And he said that this particular Jagmani system actually creates a lot of slavery, slave mentality, fatalism, etc. And this Jagmani system was there in all Indian villages. This kind of a Jagmani system should have been there in Harappa and Mohenjo-daro. That was what Kanoya says, that was what Jane McIntosh says. A lot of archaeologists today agree to that particular thing. But unfortunately, in our books, we never emphasize this particular aspect that there seems to be, I'm using the words very carefully, okay, in a textbook at least this should have been told, that there seems to be a continuity of social structures from Harappa Mohenjo-daro to the historical times, but that our history textbooks don't say. This is a minimal statement that can be said. Now we come to the Jagmani system itself. As you know that the word comes from Yajna. The root of the Jagmani system, the word comes from Yajna. And this was something that was noticed by, and of course I know the name is not very, would not be well received by some people here, but still I have to tell that this particular aspect was stressed long before Weiser by Mahatma Gandhi. When he was in Yerwada jail in 1930, he writes a letter in which he very clearly says that Indian villages, and he gives live examples of a tailor, of a barber, of a carpenter. He tells these people, they are working with the spirit of Yajna in villages, and we have always seen this. And he goes on to say how Yajna is a selfless thing and how it is sustaining the village life, etc., etc. And remember, when you go to the Voices book, you will find a very interesting thing. As I told you, he tells that the Jagmani system is advantageous to the Brahmin and it is completely disadvantageous to the Dalit. And for that, he gives examples. One of the examples is an anecdotal example that is almost 150 years ago. Another one is that naturally he quotes Manu and Dharmasastras and tells this is disadvantageous to the Dalits and advantageous to the Brahmin. But in the case of Gandhi, he provides a solid live example. A tailor by name Motilal, how he had worked, how his concept of yajna was there in him in a very spontaneous manner. He had mentioned it.